So the aggregate supply line has the ability to shift. We show it shifting from an equilibrium position here to putting ourselves in a recession here. This could be caused from an increase in cost of production for whatever reason, whether they're seeing a increase of government regulations, higher business taxes, higher labor wages, or higher resource costs like oil. If that were to occur, you would see a second short-run Phillips curve up here. We're at equilibrium here, full output, equilibrium here with a natural rate of unemployment of 4%. When aggregate supply decreases and shifts left, two things happen. Price levels come up, causing inflation to come up vertically, and real GDP decreases, causing unemployment to increase. Again, you're going to see that vertically, the graphs move in the same direction, but horizontally, they are inverse to each other. Now, aggregate supply has the ability, let me zoom out here, to be drawn in a slightly different manner. You might see that aggregate supply is shown in more of a segmented portion, where it is horizontal, slopes upward, and then becomes vertical. The vertical section here, drawn in blue, is relative to the LRAS. It is showing that we have a limit to our overall production. Down here, you would symbolize this as your YF, showing that this is our full potential level of output. Aggregate demand could intersect anywhere along this aggregate supply line. If there were to be an increase from 81 to 82 along the horizontal section, you would notice that price levels would not change. However, there would be an increase in real GDP output. This is going to occur during a major recession where there's lots of what is known as excess capacity. This is simply many factories that have the ability to be open but are remaining closed. This green portion here from 83 to 84 is indicative of a normal behaving economy where an increase of aggregate demand both increases price and real GDP output. The vertical portion of the AS line is more indicative of a demand pull inflation, where if demand were to increase from 85 to 86, you would see a large increase in price levels, but no change in overall output. This is because the economy has reached its full production limit. The phrase economists like to use for an increase of aggregate demand along the vertical portion of AS is too many dollars chasing too few goods. Next, we're going to take a look at how the economy is self-correcting over time. In the long run, we're always going to come back to equilibrium, even if no major policies by the government are enacted. Now, let us be clear that there is no specific time frame for the long run. It could be a year, it could be 7 years, it could be 20 years. We're not sure. However, let me give you an example of what happens. In a recession, wages are typically low. Workers are just thankful that they have a job. They're not going up to their bosses and demanding raises. If they do, they're more likely to be fired because they understand that they are easily replaced because many people want their job, because in a recession, unemployment rates are high. Therefore, with these low worker wages, this is going to yield a lower cost of production to the business or the producer. So with this lower cost of production, the producers are now able to supply more. If the economy starts off in a recession with low worker wages, that lower cost production, all of a sudden, you're going to see that aggregate supply is able to make this shift to the right. This rightward shift of aggregate supply will bring us to equilibrium because of these flexible wages. As aggregate supply increases, prices drop and output increases. On the Phillips curve, it would be illustrated in the following manner. Our economy would start off in a recession with higher levels of unemployment and a relatively higher price. As supply increases, prices drop as things become more plentiful, so therefore inflation drops. Real output increases, more workers, so therefore unemployment decreases. The opposite is also true. If the economy were to start off in an inflationary period, in inflation, prices of goods and services are high. Therefore, workers will demand higher wages in order to afford their higher priced goods and services. When wages are high, this is going to yield higher cost of productions to the business and therefore cause a decrease in aggregate supply. This decreased aggregate supply will cause prices to increase and output to drop. This is illustrated by starting us off in an inflationary period. Prices increase even further, bringing up higher levels of inflation, and then real GDP decreases, showing a higher level of unemployment. Again, when AS moves, you get a new SRPC2 in the opposite direction. Over here, AS shifted to the left. Over here, the short-run Phillips curve shifted to the right. Lastly, if the economy were to be in a recession, as illustrated here, where our current level of output is not at our full potential level of output, and the government decides to increase its spending, you would see that aggregate demand increases, bringing us to equilibrium. Prices come up, and then real GDP comes up. Over here, our economy is starting off in that same recession with higher levels of unemployment, something greater than that 4%. As prices increase, that means inflation is going to come up vertically. As real GDP increases, we need more workers, so unemployment drops. And the dot will shift up and over along the curve, bringing us back to equilibrium. That's the end of chapter 14. Hope you guys learned something.